Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm getting ready to start on my next project. I've always had this idea of building kind of like a cool looking grandfather clock that's kind of very gothic, and somehow incorporate, something into it. So I kind of had this idea for a while, and this is essentially what my next project's going to be. All right, so here's the game plan. Is we've had this clock right here for probably a good 20 years. I actually forgot where we got it from, but according to my wife, we got it from my in-laws when we first moved into the house. They kind of gave it to us as like a housewarming gift, but I'm not going to do anything with this just because I look at this and there's no real way to make this thing look cool. So my game plan is I'm just going to rob a few parts off of it that I want. One of them is going to be, as you can see, I've already pulled the clock face out of it, the pendulum. The weights are sitting right there, but I'll be using the weights as well. I'm going to show a quick picture of essentially my game plan of what I'm going for. So here's a basic sketch of essentially what my game plan is. I want to build a whole new clock, starting from essentially nothing and essentially building an entire new unit right here. And I want to make it to where it looks like the glass is broken right here and the Reaper is actually coming out of the clock. And I want to kind of try to go somewhat gothic, I guess you can say. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do the top exactly, just to try to see if I can come up with something that's going to be kind of cool looking. I don't know if I'm going to do a raised panel here, or we might think of something different to do there. I don't really know just yet. Okay, so here's step one. What it is, I took this piece of wood right here, and I actually drew the thing out to scale. All these little different trim pieces you see, all these little cove moldings and stuff like that. I have a little bunch of drop pieces of that kind of stuff, so I was able to use that and actually trace it to make everything to scale. So you see right now I have a nice little base here, about 16 inches. Then I have my center section. I have it set right now 3 feet. We'll see if that stays that size. And then I got my top section right here. You see I'm kind of going with a little bit of like a pointed, kind of arch, for the roof and around the clock base itself. These are going to be kind of like a little bit of like a ledge kind of thing with a double cove, trim right there. I'm going to kind of do like little spikes on it, top, middle, and on both sides. But essentially, I said this is cut to scale, or not cut, sorry, drawn to scale. So this essentially is going to be my blueprint. That's what I'm going to be working off of. I'm sure that it's going to slowly morph into something different because that old-fashioned saying, everything always looks good on paper until you actually start building it. So we'll see how well it works out. Plus, this also gives me a little bit more idea of how much material I need to get. So I'm going to start getting some material and let's start cutting some lumber. Okay, so I got the roof in place. You see I ended up putting some screws in the top here just to hold everything in place. The reason I did that, and I'm not too worried about it, is because I'm going to be putting those little spikes on here, and I'll be having one up here, and I'm just going to build a little cover cap that's going to go right across here, to tie this into this piece up here, and it'll hide all those screws, so I'm not too worried about it. I just want to make sure that I don't have any problems with it wanting to pop out. Even with the glue, I mean, it should hold, but it is this thin veneer kind of wood, and it could easily split and pop up. So I wanted to make sure it doesn't move. I got this piece on. You see I got the trim on, so everything's nice and even. So this way you don't see any raw edges of that board. Everything is all, tied in nicely. Now the next step is I'm working on these right here. Now what it is, I picked up these little things right here. I don't know if they're probably a candle holder type thing. I found them at a hobby store. And I picked up just a dowel rod. Now, obviously, the dowel rod was too big to fit inside there, and I did that purposely because I wanted to be able to maybe taper it or something like that. So, but unfortunately, obviously, I had to make that smaller right there. Now, I don't have a lathe or anything like that to do that. And obviously, trying to hold it and use an angle grinder was not going to be too consistent. So what I did here is I took my table saw, and what I did is I marked the height that I needed to go here, set my blade to it, and I set the fence where I needed to be, so I'm only taking a little off. Obviously turned it on, kept my hands well clear, and as the blade was spinning, I just essentially rotated this all the way through like this until I went all the way through to the other side, and that gave me that nice taper that just fits down inside those little pieces just fine. And the next step is to get them glued, nailed into place. Before I do nail the top one though, I'm going to drill a hole dead center, come all the way through the top. So I know my center point right here. So when I put the top piece on, everything lines up this way and this way. So I want to make sure that it's not off-centered or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in place, get those top ones in place. Got some trim down here to do. As soon as the filler is dry on the clock, I'll sand that down, paint the clock, get that mounted in there, and then I can start working on the base. Okay, I finished out the night last night getting the door just kind of temped in place there. It's not no hinges or anything just yet. I wanted to see how centered the clock, looked inside there. Got everything all sanded, put everything kind of back together. You see the little top pieces I did up here that kind of cover the screws. So right now I pretty much have this ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the bottom piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be figuring out my measurements so I can start working on that. So let's get started on the next part. Okay, so you see I got the door cut out. I got it sitting right there. Did some routering on it. Right now we're kind of tinkering with some little corner pieces and decorative pieces that I picked up from the store. We're not sure if we're going to stick with those specifically. We're going to look and see if we can find something different. If not, we'll probably just stick with those. We're also going to try to find something for up here. I have another one of those corners that I put right there. I'm not sure if I really want it, tucked way up inside there like that. So I kind of want something that maybe comes down a little bit. So we're going to kind of look around and stuff like that. I've decided I don't like the clock black. So I'm going to kind of paint this area and this area with kind of like a aged gold. So this way it kind of ties into the pendulum and the weights. So I'm going to be taking that out and I'll be repainting that, and I'll just repaint the hands black again. But the next step is just to put the door back in, put the what's going to look like broken glass in it, get the Reaper put in position, find how I'm going to attach him to everything so he doesn't move. Then pretty much after that, I should be on to doing all the staining, and hopefully this one will be done very shortly. All right, so I'm kind of working on the skeleton here a little bit. And this is kind of what I'm sort of coming up with a little bit. My original drawing, I kind of made it look like, like this arm right here was really reaching out kind of thing. But in order to get that shoulder to clear and have him with that look, he would be really, he would really be sticking out. He would be way out here. And I really don't want him sticking out that far. So I'm kind of rethinking how the pose is going to be. This is kind of what I'm kind of looking at the moment, where I have this hand right here, where I kind of, turn it around, put it against here like he's pushing himself out of the clock. And then this one right here will be coming through where the broken glass is going to be. I'll probably have one of the weights right here, or maybe I might have the pendulum hanging out of his hand. I'm not sure yet, but I do want to put something in his hand that kind of is associated to the clock itself. You see, he just comes out to be right about the door height. I'll probably make it look like there's broken glass back here, the broken glass on the bottom. And all I'm doing is just to put him in there is just ran a piece of electrical conduit all the way up in the backbone, all the way to the top there. Just drill the hole down inside here, put a small bend in it. And I have my screw here, and that screw is just kind of locking it in so he doesn't really have a whole lot of wiggle to him. But I'm going to do a little more finessing with the pose a little bit, see if I can come up with something that might look a little bit better. If not, this is probably going to be the final pose for it. And then once I figure that out, then I'll go ahead and put the robe on him and then make the fake pieces of glass, because I want to have the whole thing fully assembled just to see how I like it. And then if I like everything, then I'll go ahead and take it back apart and start doing the staining. All right, so when I got the Reaper painted, I went with a gray on this one because, the whole theme of this thing is time. Your time is up kind of thing. It's all about time. And I wanted to give it the look like he's been around a really long time, and, he's kind of a grayish color. You know how most stuff like, wood and things like that, when it's out in the elements or been around for a very long time, it kind of takes on a little bit of a grayish color. So that's kind of what I did with this one. So obviously once I get the robe and all that stuff on there, and you're only seeing just a little bit of it, I think it's actually going to look really good. The other thing I also did is I also redid the clock base. Like I said, I just did not like the black, but I also didn't want solid gold. So I kind of did the sponge thing where you take a little bit of gold, you put it on a little sponge, you just tap it. So you see I kind of did that, just trying to give it like a kind of an aged, it's been around a long time kind of look to it. I also did the pendulum and the weights as well to kind of give those kind of the same effect. So it kind of all ties into that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and consider this one to be done. Overall, I think it came out pretty good. My biggest hurdle was the staining. I wanted to try to find the darkest stain that I possibly could without making it black. Because with the Reaper wearing black, I didn't want all that black on there, and then the Reaper just kind of almost blend into the clock too much outside of the skeleton himself being painted gray color. As you see, I did a couple unique little features on it. One of them is the eyes. Made it look like his eyes are on fire as he's staring at you. And then I also did a fire inside the case, so it has a little bit of a background lighting. The other thing I did was you can see I wanted to find a way to reincorporate the pendulum into the clock situation. So what I did is I thought it'd be kind of cool to essentially have him holding the pendulum, and as he's essentially coming out of the clock looking at you, he's waving it back and forth, saying tick tock, time is up kind of thing. So I thought that'd be a cool way to reincorporate the pendulum back into the clock. Plus, also gives it movement, so it kind of draws your eye to it. So it kind of gives a little bit of functionality on that aspect. I also did, kind of like the simulated broken glass with some kind of like a plexiglass. And as he broke through the glass, you can see where he knocked the weights down. So the weights are sitting down the bottom of the case where they kind of fell down there. They're glued in place, so they're not going to move. The other thing we did is we put the same, plexiglass up here, so we ain't got to worry about this breaking. Got the door working pretty good. I'm not going to do the magnet here like I originally talked about. I'm just going to put a nice little decorative little latch here. I just haven't found one yet. I do like the change in the clock color, from going straight black to kind of like this aged kind of gold color. The reason why is because I like the darkness of what I did here with the black and all that. I think helped ties into the dark stain of the clock, and then the gold aspect brought it back into the color of the pendulum and the weights and stuff like that. So it kind of ties into two aspects of the clock. And I left the clock face part right there, nice and that white color. So this way, when everything's all shut, you can read it nice and clear. But overall, I like the way this one come out. I'm definitely no master clock builder. I can tell you that right now. Was a lot of fun to make. I also want to give a little credit to my youngest. He's going to be 14 soon. And he came up to me asking me, saying he wants to learn a little bit about carpentry. I told him that my next project was essentially going to be pretty much a wood project. I'm going to be doing a lot of, cutting, measuring, mitering, all that kind of stuff. So I asked him if he wanted to help. He said he wanted to help, so he actually helped me out with this. He probably did about 75% with me. Running stuff through the table saw, running the miter cuts, running the screw gun, nail gun, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, closely watched. I wanted to make sure he was safe. But I'm very proud of him. He did a really good job with, using the tools and lining everything up, making everything look good. So, I'm very proud of him for that. It was nice actually doing a little project with my youngest. So, give him a little credit there. But overall, I like the way this turned out. You have to leave me a comment, tell me what you think. And if you hang around for another couple minutes, I'm going to do a little bit of a bonus feature at the end of this video. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go over some of the stuff that wasn't in this video, like how I built the mechanism for the pendulum and how I did the fire eyes and all that. So if you'd like to see that little bit, hang around for a couple more minutes. If not, leave me a comment, tell me what you think. Hit that like button. And as always, thanks for watching. Well, thanks for hanging around for the bonus features. Pretty much what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of show quick of how I did, the hand and the pendulum and how it's swinging back and forth and the mechanism I have for that, and then how I essentially did the fiery eyes, essentially. I'm going to start off with the pendulum because that was a little more of a complex setup. I probably should have done this before I got all the clothing on it, but I kind of forgot to. You sort of see what I got going on here is I had this piece of round bar right here. And you see right here, I have a little bracket system to kind of help keep it nice and stable inside there. And what I did is I welded a washer, that round bar, which allowed me to put 2 screws in the arm of the pendulum, and that's actually what's actually fixed to that round bar right there. And then the hand is just essentially hot glued into position. Since this is going to be indoors, the hot glue is going to be perfectly fine for it. And what that did is that you can see what that kind of gave it the look that the hand is what's actually moving it back and forth. Now for the mechanism for that, what it is, I took the sprocket portion off one of my kids' bikes that they're too big for. And this essentially is for the back wheel. I just cut all the spokes off it, took it off, went inside, removed all the locking mechanism in here where this would have been the lock. You know, when they hit the brakes, you know, it goes backwards and it locks. And what I did is I took that round bar, welded it on the other end of the, essentially the bolt that's right here, welded it on the other end right there. That support system is, that bracket I have, is just to keep the weight from wanting to do this with it over time. It keeps it nice and straight and parallel. And then what I did is I just took one of those little 110 motors, made a little small cam for it that's a really short throw, because obviously you don't want a whole lot of throw with this. And I just brought it down to a piece of metal right here. You can see obviously I drilled a couple different holes trying to get the right amount of swing that I wanted. And all that is that just moving that just a little bit. And that's what's giving me the pendulum swinging. And for the fiery eyes, all I did, you see where I cut the back of the skull. I just took a light socket, mounted it right to the back of the neck. It goes up inside the skull right there. We used a little bit of landscape fabric on the eyes. We did that for a couple reasons. One, it kind of helps blur everything. So this way, if you're looking at it from an angle, you don't really see the light bulb itself. You just continue to see the illusion of the flickering light. And when the light's off, you can't see inside there, so it gives it a good dark shading for that. You see, all I did is I just have the skull right here. Here's the backside. I took a bunch of that chrome tape that you'll find at any hardware store that uses for AC ductwork. You know, it has like a little, it's a foil, you know, kind of tape. Cover that with the whole skull so it helps project the light all the way across the back of it, so it enhances the light when you're looking at it. And I just put these little metal tabs here, there, and on the other side. So when I put the back of the cap on, I just put 4 screws in it. And then once the headdress goes over top of it, you don't actually see all that. All you see is just the fiery eyes. And then on the inside, what you see is where it looks like there's fire behind him as well. And what that is, that's being done by the second light bulb that's up here. And then there's a little bit of silver paint on that back right there. And that's what kind of gives you the illusion like he has like almost like fire behind him. So that's pretty much what I did for some of the bonus features. I put an access door on the back here. This is so I can get to my battery for my clock. But like I said, thanks for hanging out for the bonus features. Thanks for checking out my video. And thanks for watching.